Hey guys, my name is Tyler Sammis. I fight out of Core MMA in Gulf Breeze, Florida.
What's up, everybody? It is Tyler with Mom's Basement MMA, and my man Tyler, better Tyler, he just cut a gangster intro. Tyler, man, I just want to welcome you and introduce you to everybody. I'm happy that you're here, and I'm happy that we were able to work something out because I know we've been talking for a little while. I want to talk about you are in the most, bar none, the most difficult sport imaginable to not only compete in, but to just get started in because of all the hoops and all of the difficulties. What made you want to compete in mixed martial arts at the level that you are currently competing at?
So, I've always been, for sure, but I've always been interested in combat sports like jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, and all of that. And been training jiu-jitsu, since I was a little bit, 4 years old. And then, I get more and more interested in the jiu-jitsu aspect of watching UFC fights and all of that. And I'm like, that'd be really cool to be able to, legally punch somebody in the face, Because, growing up in school, all that, you can't fight because you get in trouble. And now I'm like, I can legally do it. That'd be pretty cool. And I had my first fight and I was like, yes, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to do from now on, So, and just watching it and slowly, figuring out, what I need to do to get it kicked off with it, so.
Well, you're a young dude. You're 18 years old and you're growing up when the sport started turning mainstream. Because when I was 18, 19 years old, I'm going to sound old as shit saying this, but we're very much at the height of Forrest Griffin. We're very much at the height of Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. And even during that point in time, it was on TV, but it was still kind of edgy. Really wasn't. It was kind of seen as a what's a good way of describing it? An illegitimate kind of barely above the cusp of a backyard brawl.
Yeah, it was professional street fighting.
Exactly. So it didn't really gain a lot of attention or respect from the mainstream media. It was very niche, and it eventually grew. So, I'm from the old guard, and here you are, the new generation, and you're growing up, and you saw people like Ronda Rousey, you saw Nate Diaz, you saw Jorge Masvidal, and a number of other high-profile athletes. Was there a fighter or a couple of fighters that you looked at as a kid growing up and you're just man, that guy's a gangster, or I want to fight like her? Did any of them have an impact on you?
Yeah, so we're not Ronda Rousey with her judo background. I mentioned before training judo. I'd watch her do just nail Harada Yoshis left and right in fights. And I'm like, well, it works when somebody actually trying to kill you. I'm like, wow, okay. So Ronda Rousey is one, and then Nick Diaz a little bit, and then another good one that got me into the brawling aspect of Robbie Lawler. That guy, he's a monster, and I look at him and I was like, if I can fight like that, I'm never gonna be stopped,
Oh my gosh, his fight against Rory McDonald was probably the best fight I think I've ever seen.
The second one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, if you have never seen a mixed martial arts bout before, that's the fight that I would put in front of you to hook you. There's no better fight than that. That was the best fight I think I've ever seen, and it was just incredible. I mean, I love both of those guys, and I'm really curious to see Nick Diaz and Robbie go at it for the second time here in a while. It's been a long time in the making. Right off the cuff, do you have a guess as to who you think's gonna win for that one right off the cuff?
I say Robbie. The reason why, and I'm not being biased, well, maybe a little bit, but Robbie because he's fought within the last few years. Nick hasn't fought in what 17 years, just about, or was that their last fight? 17 years ago?
Yeah, their last fight was like when you were in diapers. Yes.
Yeah. But they I feel like Robbie's more active, or has been more active than Nick. Now I don't know if Nick's been training or all those years off that he hasn't been fighting, but I feel like Robbie would come on top of it. I think watching.
If I were a betting man, I think I would probably put my money on Nick. And the reason why I say that is because for the reason why you would go with Robbie is the exact reason why I would go for Nick, interestingly enough. Because he's been away from the sport. He has a lot less mileage on him. He seems like he's in fantastic shape. It'll be just interesting to see what happens, man. That'll definitely be a good one to definitely keep our eye on. Let's shift gears a little bit. I wanted to talk about your first ammy fight. It's really rare that I get an opportunity to talk to somebody who's just starting out in their career, and the ammy scene in general is so much more difficult than I think people give it credit for, and I'm finding way out, like, as I've been covering the sport and the more and more ammy fighters I talk to, I sit back and I am in amazement on how you guys are able to do this. Here's what I mean by that. Amateur fighters do not get paid. They might, depending on the promotion, get a little piece of the tickets that they're able to sell, but that varies by promotion. Oftentimes, they don't even get that. They show up. They are on their own for travel expenses. They are on their own for coming up in the gym. They show up. They're thrown in the cage, and, if the promoter's happy, they'll be like, oh, okay, great, good job. Next time we need another body in here to fight, we'll give you a call. Have a nice day. And that's it. That's literally it. There are a lot of barriers to competing in this sport. You have to be in a gym, and training is in itself a full-time job. And remember what I just said, these guys aren't getting paid. So they're in school while they're doing this full-time, they work a full-time job, or all of the above while they're competing on the ammy scene. So I guess the first question, Tyler, is how are you managing to do this?
You said full-time job. I do have a full-time job. With that, I maybe depend on gym membership. I have a set schedule, so I work 5 a.m. to 2, and then I go home, rest for a couple of hours, and then I wake up, go train, and then I train for 3-4 hours, and then go back home, repeat it the next day.
Do you have like an office job, or do you like build decks or something crazy like that?
I drive a forklift all day. I work at Home Depot. So
okay.
I load and unload trucks.
Dude, like that is a lot of that's like heavy. That's like manual labor. Like if you're loading trucks and stuff all day long, and then you're going home for a couple hours, and then going into the gym after that, like a lot of people would just be sore just from working. But you're like going to an MMA gym for hours on end. Like, how often do you incorporate like a little R&R into your schedule? Because I know you're a young guy. I remember when I was 18, I could heal up pretty quick, but I mean, does it like grind on you after a while?
It does, but it also helps that I have a sponsor, chiropractor sponsor, Dr. Paul Brick over here in the Panhandle, who's one of the best for sports, anything that's bothering me. I just go and see him and I'm good the next day, or if not, I'm just a little bit sore the next day, and then that just means, whatever I'm doing that day in training, I don't feel as hard. That I don't push myself to injury.
So, Tyler, you're a 145-pound featherweight contender. Like, what is your walk-around weight, typically?
I, about 150, and then occasionally 55.
Okay, so you pretty much maintain your body weight then. So, if anything, we're talking about 10 pounds that you might have to cut.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, that's probably what I'm going to stay for a little bit, because I'm still 18, I'm still growing. But I had planned for my last fight, it was at 45, but I was planning on bulking up. to fight at 55, so I was trying to get up to where I could just muscle and then walk around at like 60, 65. And then I was bulking and I was walking about 63, 163, and then I got, told that this guy called me out at 145, and I'm like, well, crap. So then I cut from 163 to 45 in about a week. So
that must have been miserable because you're not eating. You're probably wearing like that sweatsuit the entire time. That just sounds fucking miserable, dude.
A handful of cashews every 6 hours and then sips of water. That's all it was.
Yeah, and it's one thing if you're doing that and getting like a $10,000 check. It's quite another when you're doing it to just get a high five at the end and like, hey, if you want to fight again, maybe we'll hit you up. Like that's crazy, dude. Can we talk a little bit? I wanted to talk about your very first fight. It was against Beck Shields at Empire FC 6, and that wasn't even a year ago. That was I want to say that fight happened in like October, November of 2020. So we're not even, you're approaching the 1 year anniversary of said fight. And I wanted to ask you, not so much about the fight itself, but the before and after. When you're in the locker room getting ready to like lace it up for the very first time and make that walk into the cage for the very first time, like, are you barfing, like, in a trash can somewhere? Are you, like, crapping your pants? Like, do your nerves get to you? Like when you're warming up, did it ever dawn on you, like, I'm about to get locked in a cage with the guy that's trying to hurt me? Or can you just, like, take me through, like, the mental aspect of that and the preparations in the back room as you're getting ready to make that first walk?
Yeah, so I'd be lying if I said, nobody gets, or I'd be lying if I said that I don't get nervous before a fight. And any fighter would be lying if they said that, but I think it comes down to who can manage it the best. With me, growing up, competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments in front of, a lot of people, and then doing super fights on stages in front of a lot of people, I'm kind of used to the whole people watching me aspect. So that didn't really bother me. And then as far as like going in there knowing somebody's there to hurt me and to come away with a victory like I am, I kind of saw it, an eye-to-eye thing. Like, I'm doing the same thing to him, he's doing the same thing to me, so it's just going to be who comes out on top. So, kind of stayed positive with it. Of course, I had the pre-fight jitters and stuff like that. And in that fight, with it being my first fight, I gassed out. I didn't know any better. I was so anxious to get in there and just beat the crap out of him, so I was hitting hard every punch I threw. But, yeah.
Fight did not go your way. Gassed out, it didn't go how you envisioned it. So now let's go back into the locker room. So you're taking your gloves off, you're sitting down at the bench, or you're jumping in the shower or whatever. Like, what is going on in your mind? Because it's always difficult to take a loss, but like when you're taking a loss in a debut fight, whether it's professional or ammy, like that hurts a lot. Like I've talked to a lot of fighters, and there's something about the importance of starting off right. Like getting that debut fight and getting that dub. And I know when you were training so hard for this fight and making that walk, there's probably in the back of your mind like, yeah, I respect my opponent, but I'm better than this guy and I'm going to come away with the dub. And it didn't go that way. And your game plan, right, you talked about gassing out and it not really going how you thought it would. Were you frustrated at yourself? Like, were you angry? Like, people handle a loss differently. Everyone's different when it comes to that. So how did you handle it?
For that first fight specifically, I was happy. Not happy that I lost, but I was happy that I finally was able to step in there and do something that I've been wanting to do for a while. But I wasn't. I didn't beat myself up over it. I knew that I gassed out, so I wasn't gonna be like, oh, my cardio was there. And my cardio was there. It's just I didn't know better not to hit, with 100%. But I looked at it on a positive side of, I did something. I was one of the very few people that actually stepped up and got locked into a cage. So I was happy that I was able to do it. And then,
should be happy because like that's something that nobody does. Like, and I'm not talking just about fighting. I'm talking about life in general. There's a lot of people that say shit like, oh, well, I wish I was an airline pilot, or oh, I wish I was a mixed martial artist, or oh, I wish I had my own podcast or something like that. But that's where it stops. They talk about doing stuff, and it would be nice, but they never have the balls to actually follow through and try. And that means going to the gym and like getting in shape and preparing for a fight, or learning how to video edit, or whatever it is that you're trying to do in this life. Most people aren't willing to try. They want the end result, but they're not willing to put in that grind. And if you're trying to like cut corners or cheat the process, it won't work. And I think deep down they know that, and that's why they don't try.
Yeah, it's a for me. You know, if I set my mind to something, and I'm like I'm gonna do that, I'll do everything it takes to do that. I'm very driven, especially when it's something that I'm passionate about.
We took that loss, and in what must have been the longest 4 months of your life, you fight again in February of 2021 against a guy that was making your debut. So when you're training for this fight, in the back of your mind, do you feel a little bit better knowing you've already made the walk once? This guy's making his debut. Did you feel like you had an edge against your opponent going into that one?
I do. Like I mentioned before, I gassed out. I didn't know any better. Not to throw 100%. I feel like that's where I had the advantage. That fight, February, I believe, was against Matthew Robertson. And I knew he was coming from a legit gym. So I was like, well, his striking's probably going to be there, but I don't think he knows, not to throw 100%. So I feel like I had that against him, and which it did. He did gas out. So my cardio was better that fight than it was my first fight, for sure.
And that was the fight. You got your first dub after that. And so what was that experience like? So you, right away, in your first two fights, you experience, it's like the stock market, like a really low, a low, and then like working your ass off, winning a fight and going into the back room. It's got to be like Christmas morning. Like you got to be like so jacked, so happy, and like feeling accomplished. Like what was going on in your mind then, as opposed to the first fight after when you're in the back room with your coaches?
It's a tough one. I mean, I was very humble. Immediately after getting my gloves off and taking my wraps off and getting dressed again. I went and found Matthew, and I was like, hey man, that was a good fight. It was good. He pushed me, and he said the same thing I did. Like, he was excited that he was just able to get in there, and but it felt good. I was able to go upstairs to the balcony and just see all my family, and they were hugging me, congratulating me, and all that. So it felt good. It was a good feeling. But again, always got to stay humble with it. Never. Go off and I won and you didn't. So.
Yeah, that's definitely a sign of maturity. And like looking back on it, did it kind of like reinforce or give you that sense of validation? Like, yes, I have what it takes to do this. I can win. I'm better than what I was before. Like, was it kind of like reassuring in a way?
Yeah, it definitely boosted the confidence there. I hate to say it, but after every fight, and all of that, after every fight that I lose, you kind of get that little thought, like, why am I doing this? I trained so hard for this. I was doing so good in training, and I come out and it just goes away in the fight. It's like everything I trained for didn't apply in the fight.
So you have competed in a total of 4 bouts, and you've seen both sides of the coin. We've taken some L's. We've also got some dubs as well. And when you look back on those 4 fights, like as a whole, number one, none of them have gone the distance. You don't know what it's like to like go in front of judges. You've either been finished or finished other guys. And we'll talk about that in a second. But if you had to like grade yourself, like what grade would you give yourself based off of those 4 fights? And what are some of the lessons that...
I'd say B-. And I say that because, my first fight, I gassed out. Again, I didn't know any better. Second fight with Matthew, I was able to finish it in the third round. Very close to going to the decision, but I was able to finish it in the rear naked choke. There, the reason why I give myself a B minus is because my cardio was there, and I maintained control when it was on the ground. That fight was mainly just a jiu-jitsu match, combat jiu-jitsu match. There, barely stood up. And my third fight, Lane Temple, that guy, he was an absolute beast. I landed some good strikes, so my striking was there. Everything that I've been working on striking wise, I was able to showcase a little bit, and then cracks me in my nose, breaks my nose, so then I take him down, and that's where he had to be advantage. So I'll give myself B minus because of that. And then my fourth fight is like, again, staying humble, but I was on top the entire fight. So B minus. The lessons that I learned was, never underestimate anybody, because I did at one point, and during my fight camp with Lane Temple, I did kind of underestimate him a little bit. I'll admit that. I was under the impression that he wasn't very high ranking in jiu-jitsu, and then after the fight, I'm purple belt, and a couple of stripes, purple belt, and other than that, wow, okay, that would have been cool, before the fight. But I never underestimate anybody. And go out there, expecting to get hit, and go out there expecting to hit them.
You mentioned a couple of things, particularly about ground control. And from having looked at all of your fights, I'll say this, your ground game definitely stands out to me. Even when you are on your back, you're very active and you're very comfortable off your back. There was one bout, and I can't recall if it was your most recent bout or if it was like the one prior to that, but you were on your back, a guy gets a takedown against you, and you almost choke him out with like a leg triangle. You locked in what looked like a Kimura submission. Like, you're constantly active, and it seems like to me, like, you sit and I won't say like you don't panic. You see a lot of guys that will try to scramble, they'll try to get up as soon as they possibly can, but you don't really do that. And I, like, having looked at you, I think you're at a point where it's just like, go ahead, get that top control on me. I'll wait until you try to strike me, and I'm going to catch you. And when I catch you, you're going to have a problem. Is that more or less accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one you described, that was my second fight against Matthew. He, shot into a takedown, and I tried to keep him, off of me, because I was willing to stand up and stand him down with him, But if he took me down, again, I was comfortable there. My jiu-jitsu, like stepping away from the other side, my jiu-jitsu game revolves around me staying patient and waiting for somebody to make a mistake. I kind of, place traps. Like, if I know somebody's going to go to the left, I'm going to do something to make them go to the left, and then I have something set up then. So I'm always thinking 3 steps ahead, and that's kind of how it is. I applied that in that fight with Matthew. Like, I lock up this triangle. If he knows anything about triangle defense, he's gonna posture up and try to take his head. So then I pulled on the head, so he couldn't do that. And then his arm, I knew, if he knows anything about the arm going across, so I kind of left that dangle, and then he goes behind my leg where I wanted it, and then I shot for that Kimura. And then, I'm just always thinking steps ahead. So.
I love your submission game. I thought that definitely stood out to me. I liked your patience. Your patience also stood out to me. And you never panicked about being down on the ground. And it's just nice to see. Like, I think, like, your level of experience, like, I know you've been involved in martial arts, judo primarily, but your jiu-jitsu, like, you're very composed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. For a guy your age, typically fighters that are 18, 19, 20 years old, they're very green. Like, they might be amazing, like, at karate, or they might be amazing at jiu-jitsu or boxing, or whatever the case may be. But as soon as they're out of their element, you start to see the eyes pop open. You start to see, like, oh, I'm a Muay Thai guy, now I'm down on the ground. Or I'm a boxer, I'm down on the ground now. What the hell am I going to do? And for you, it just doesn't seem like you're really... It seems like you're comfortable in every facet of the game. Would you say it's fair to say, like, your discipline, I know we're talking about mixed martial arts, but your discipline, is it fair to say it's primarily like judo and BJJ based?
I'll say I'm very well rounded now. Starting out, it was definitely jiu-jitsu. But now I've got Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, judo, and some wrestling that I'm doing in between fight camps, So primarily, if I had to choose one, I'd probably still do jiu-jitsu.
Hell yeah. So before I let you go, I wanted to say that we do things different here, and for all the listeners that are checking out this reformatted version of the show, I put together clips of Tyler of all the things that he did that we've been talking about. So if you have never seen him fight before, you're in for a treat, because I have that coming up next. Before I show that, Tyler, though, I wanted to do two things. Number one, what was it? Because I know I sent you the clips. I know you've seen them. What was it that you want to tell people about your fighting style, or anything that you want them to know about you before they watch that?
I may seem like, I'm on the losing end of it, but we were just talking about patience. That's just it. I'm very patient. I wait for the counter punch when it is striking, and then I'll wait for the submissions when they're presented to me. So if it looks like I'm slacking off or kind of tired because I'm backing up a little bit, whatever, I'm not. I'm just waiting for that counter punch, and when you get cooked, it's gonna hurt.
I love watching you fight, man, and I can't wait till you go back out there again. You have this, you carry yourself with a lot of maturity, not just outside of the ring, but I see it inside the ring. You fight a lot older than what you are, and I just think that's a testament to very good coaching and just your personality in general. You come across as being a really hardworking, humble guy. I think that attitude and that discipline will take you far. Before I let you go, can you tell me when you think you're going to be back out there again?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually scheduled to fight September 24th back at Island Fights in the Bay Center. It's on the undercard. If you guys know anything about Supreme Patty, he's boxing another celebrity. He goes by the name Brent Gang. They're boxing, and then they have a whole bunch of other celebrity matches. But September 24th, Pensacola Bay Center here in Pensacola, Florida for Island Fights.
Heck yeah. So, you guys, check out my guy Tyler on the undercard of those bouts. And were there any other sponsors or shout-outs or anybody at your gym that you wanted to kind of talk shit about before we show the clips?
No, really just a big shout-out to my coaches. My coach, Scott Farley, who's also my manager over at Goat Combat Agency. He's my stand-up coach. And then I got my dad, who's in jiu-jitsu brown belt. He's my ground coach. Another one of my jiu-jitsu coaches, Jimmy Terrell, he was on the original Team Punishment with Tito and Jason and all of those guys. Shout out to those guys and my training partners, Tamir, Ian, David. Those guys push me. They keep me in the best shape possible, and they're really pushing me for this fight coming up. I'm definitely training for a war. And you guys are gonna watch it. Be ready.
Hell yeah. So everyone, please show some love and some support for my guy Tyler here. He's just starting out his career, and at this level in the game, social media is important. And if he can build up a following, it helps him get more fights down the road. I know that sounds silly, and I know that sounds somewhat fickle, but that's just the fight business. So it's always important to support ammies as best you can. So please like this video, please share it with your friends, and most importantly, please follow Tyler. His Instagram handle, when you guys are watching this, I'm gonna drop it right below his mug there. So check that out and enjoy the clips.